Hello and welcome back everybody to another episode of the Idiot's Guide to the Classes and the Jobs of Final Fantasy XIV. I'm your idiot, Ash, and I'll be showing you today how to play a Lancer. The Lancer is going to finish out the different sets of roles that classes can fall into. Some people may be wondering, what do you mean by that? We've already covered DPS, healer, and tank, which is the trinity of MMOs. And yes, technically we have, but Final Fantasy XIV breaks down the roles that you can take a little more. More specifically, it breaks down the DPS role a little deeper than that. We've already managed to cover magical ranged DPS when I covered the Arcanist. We then covered physical range DPS when I covered the Archer. The Lancer is going to cover our melee DPS classes. That's how it breaks down the DPS roles. So much of what you're going to get as a Lancer is very similar to other DPS classes. There may be a little bit of difference here or there, but nothing too extreme. Remember, if you'd find anything you actually enjoy in an idiot's guide, the best way to send me praise or rewards is through head pats and ear rubs. Those are always appreciated. So let's go ahead and get into it. And we'll start off with the basic flow of combat, your abilities. Now the Lancer has their basic 1-2-3 combo like so many other both melee and ranged DPS classes, but any physical DPS class and even tanks will generally end up with at least a 3-part combo. Some actually can go to 4. The basic combo that you're going to get here is your True Thrust into your Vorpal Thrust, which goes up 2.5 times the damage if you combo it right, into Full Thrust, which does 4 times its normal damage if you combo into it correct. We've already gone over how comboing works. Really just hit a button, if another button lights up, that's your combo. And it's that simple. Now the Lancer by level 30 is going to get one other way to combo off of their True Thrust, and that's Disembowel. And this ends up leading into somewhat of kind of a defining characteristic for Lancer and later Dragoon, which is a lot of what the Lancer and again later Dragoon tends to be attacks and buffs. They don't really waste their time with a lot of other things that they need to do, right? No, like dots and a bunch of debuffs and all that. They have a lot of abilities that are straight up attacks and a lot of abilities that are designed to buff their own damage or give them other different buffs in ways to get your own health back as you fight, that sort of stuff. Where the standard 1-2-3 True Thrust, Vorpal Thrust, Full Thrust is just straight up each attack does more damage as you combo it. When you do a True Thrust into a Disembowel, the combo potency does go up. Instead of 100, it's now 210. But the benefit of going into Disembowel is Power Surge. When you combo into Disembowel, you unlock Power Surge, which means for 30 seconds, every attack you do is going to deal 10% more damage. And there it is. There's the Power Surge right there. Increases your damage dealt for 30 seconds. Now during that 30 seconds, you can kind of just use your combo like normal over and over and over again. When it starts to get low, you're going to want your next time using True Thrust to go into Disembowel to keep that Power Surge going. And beyond that, the only other thing of note for the Lancer, basic combat-wise, is Piercing Talon, and that's your ranged attack. No other benefits, really. It's not like increased enmity or some dot or some buff or debuff or anything like that. It's just a ranged attack. This is a way that you can keep your attacks going if you should have to run outside of an enemy's close range because of a mechanic they're using, or it's also a way that when you're first coming in towards a group of enemies, you can toss one of your ranged attacks as you're closing the distance and then go in for normal combat. So it's a decent way to start combat quickly from a range and get a little extra damage in before getting to the enemy, or a decent way to keep hitting the enemy and dealing some damage while you're avoiding mechanics. That covers pretty much all of the attacks that a Lancer gets and how they work and what they're most useful in. Beyond that, the other, as I said before, defining characteristic for like Lancer and Dragoon is they're very big on buffs. You will end up, as a Dragoon, getting up to like levels 50 and 60 and all that, you'll end up with probably close to like a half dozen or more different buffs to be used simultaneously or at different points in the battle, all that. But right now, by level 30, you only really need to keep track of 3 buffs. You have your Bloodbath, and that is simply a way to keep fighting and healing yourself if you've taken damage. If you're taking damage and you don't want to break the fight, you have 2 ways of healing yourself. And that's Second Wind, which pretty much all of the DPS classes, all the physical DPS classes at least, get Second Wind. And that's a decent way to just pop a cure of your own. 500 potency, instantly restores your health, and it's just a good way to keep your own health up rather than having to rely on the healer. The other way is Bloodbath. You pop Bloodbath, and then you go in and you just start fighting, and you're just going to keep healing, right? A portion of all damage you deal, you take back as health. And it's just a good way to keep your health up while you're fighting if you're taking some damage. Now, the other one that you need to keep track of is Life Surge. You're going to take some of the damage you dealt to them in as healing to your health pool. But what Life Surge also is a guaranteed crit attack for the next weapon skill that you use. Now, it only lasts for 5 seconds, so you're going to want to pop Life Surge just before you use the attack that you're planning to use it on. Life Surge can be beneficial to be used basically anywhere, but if you're really looking to get the biggest bang for your buck out of Life Surge, then just look at the potencies of your attacks, right? 170, 250, 210, 400 on full thrust if you combo off of it right. So the best ways to use Life Surge would be to start off with your combo and then pop Life Surge on the third part of your combo to just get the highest damage out. You're going to get the biggest damage boost off of it by going off the one that has the best combo potency, or the best potency in general attack, and then stacking a guaranteed critical on top of that. Really, Life Surge's major benefit isn't so much the healing that you get back. So using this at a moment when it's most useful to do even more damage out is going to be far more effective than trying to save it for a moment when you need to get some health back. And the last one is Lance Charge. This is a straight up, your damage goes up for a certain amount of time, right? 10% damage increase for 20 seconds. If you're fighting and Lance Charge is available, use it. That's pretty much all there is to it. There can be some optimal use case scenarios here or there, but it's a 60-second recast timer. If you're in a fight and Lance Charge is available, pop Lance Charge and deal out some more damage. That's your job. That's what you're here to do. So any way that you can just deal more damage to enemies, then you do Lance Charge, and then pop it into Life Surge, and stack both of them, and just do big hits like that. Really, that's the defining characteristics for a Lancer, right? You get lots of attacks, ways to buff your damage, other ways to buff your damage and get some healing back if you need it during a fight, or straight heal yourself, and a little ranged attack as sort of an opener or to avoid mechanics. That's pretty much all there is to keep track of, combat-wise. Beyond that, we go into the situational use case things. Alright, and the 2 that you get on Lancer is going to be Leg Sweep and Feint. Now, Feint can be useful is really situational when you'd want to use Feint. Because what it's going to do is it's a debuff. You stick it on an enemy, they deal less damage, both physical and magic. More effective for physical, but in general, they deal less damage to your team. But it only lasts for 10 seconds. Really, Feint can be most useful if you know a fight well enough to know that some big, heavy damage dealing mechanic is about to go off, and then you pop a Feint on the enemy to reduce it a little bit. Feint can turn the tide of a battle, make something that would have otherwise been a loss of victory, but it's probably not going to happen very often. In general, just use it when a boss is dealing a lot of damage or when you know some big damage dealing mechanic is about to go off. Leg sweep, on the other hand, is your standard stun that so many of the other physical classes, melee DPS, tanks, will end up with something designed to stun an enemy. And as I said before, a stun is very useful both in general and situationally. If you're dealing with an enemy that's dealing a lot of damage, and you can take that enemy out of the fight, even though this only lasts for 3 seconds, still, if you can take that enemy out of the fight, even for just a couple seconds, you might be able to swing the tide of battle a bit. Again, like Feint, this is probably not going to save the day very often, but it can sometimes. The other big use for a stun attack is going to be when a boss or some big monster is trying to get off a special attack of their own, right? Something that'll bring up a cast bar on them because they're about to use an attack. Not all of these can be countered by hitting them with a stun, but some can. And so that can be useful. If you know that they're about to use some big attack that may deal a lot of damage, you can hit the enemy with a stun and it may stop them from using that attack. Otherwise, leg sweep is just useful to pop off on the stronger enemies occasionally to knock them out of the fight for a couple of seconds. That pretty much covers the entire kit for a Lancer up to level 30. As I said before, once you're getting up around level 30, you should be reaching the point in the main scenario quests where you're getting, if not already to where you're unlocking your advanced job, then close to it. So that'll finish covering each of the roles available in the game. So beyond here, other classes I go over will probably have a lot of similar skills and mechanics, if not exactly the same. You're going to see stuff like leg sweep and feint come back very often, bloodbath comes back very often, second wind comes back very often, right? A lot of the classes use a lot of the same skills because they're designed more for the role that class is meant to fill rather than specific for that class. Thanks for joining me for another Idiot's Guide. Today you got to learn how to use the Lancer's kit pretty much all the way up to level 30. And remember, send a like or a subscription or anything like that if you're interested in seeing more of these guides or any more of my content in general. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.